Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel. I'm from the marketing team here at PractiTest. Welcome to our third PractiTestlabs session, where we're going to have Anthony and Christine talk about PractiTest Issue Management. Is it a core functionality or an added value? So we're going to cover in this session both PractiTest Issue Management as a standalone, and also we're going to look at it as an integrated solution. But you already know all that because you signed up for this session. This session is going to be 35 minutes, which is going to be followed by a Q&A session. Please use the Q&A window within Zoom to ask your questions and not the chat. It will be easier for us to answer this way. I'm going to share on the chat the discuss link that we opened for this session that you can later on continue and discuss this topic with us and with others. The session will be recorded as always and will be sent to you within the next few days, so don't worry about that. Before I hand over speaking, sorry, to Anthony and Chris, I want to remind you about two of the upcoming events here in PractiTest. The first one is the online test conf. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. Please go on and sign up for it. It is going to happen on the 19th to the 21st of May. It's going to be very cool. It's going to be divided into time zones. Very cool. Super interesting topics and speakers. I cannot share the agenda yet because it is not final, but go on and sign up. It is completely free, in case I didn't say that. And next week, we're going to have Joel, our co-founder and chief solution architect, talk about coping with the challenges of teams forced to test remotely. As you're aware, as you are all part of this craziness, coronavirus, forcing us to work from home remotely. So Joel is going to approach this and give some tips and some ideas that he collected throughout the years. So I will share both links for this and for the online test conf on the chat within the next few minutes. Christine, Anthony, are you here?
Yeah, we're here. Thank you, Rachel. And let me just start sharing my screen. Just a second. And thank you so much for introducing us today. Just a second. Okay, I hope you can see my screen now.
Yeah, and great.
Yeah, cool. And then I wanted just to tell you before we start, as Rachel mentioned, that we basically really appreciate our attendees and all other users who want to continue talking about our PractiTestlabs sessions. I want to show you our discussion forum. So here you can see that if you go to discuss.practitest.com, you are entering our discussion forum where you are actually you can find all the relevant questions and answers. And also, of course, here we start our communication about PractiTestlabs workshops. Here you can see PractiTestlabs discussion topic where you can raise your questions that you got from our workshop, and also any ideas, suggestions. Basically, we want to build PractiTest community. We already have it, but we want to improve it, of course, so that you can go to here and add your questions and answer other users' questions as well. And I will give Anthony to introduce our workshop, our today's workshop. So Anthony, go ahead.
I'm just going to interrupt and say that I just sent the link to the discuss in the chat. Everyone is welcome to use it.
Okay, thanks, Rachel.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this, our third PT Labs. And of course, as you've probably worked out, things are slightly different this time round from the way we've been doing things in the past. In the past, we've been sitting across a table, conference table, in our conference room in the office, and been discussing the way that we want to talk about what we're discussing as we actually go through it. And so we've been able to do a reasonably smooth and efficient experience. Today, we're both in our own houses. I apologize if there's any noise. I've tried to instruct my family not to come near this room, but if they do, I apologize for that. And also, the other thing, of course, is that we may not be quite so smooth or efficient in transitioning our discussions between each other, because normally we can wave our arms around at each other and we can see what we're saying, and if somebody says something that we don't like, we can sort of shake a fist at them. But this time we can't, because we're working purely on the Zoom, and so it's completely online, just like you are, and we ask you to bear with us if we sort of come grinding to a halt at any point without any smooth transitions. So today's topic is PractiTest Issue Management, core functionality or added value. And we just dreamt up this topic because we wanted to talk about the issues module. And many test management solutions don't include an issues module, but we do. And we are similarly to this way that we also include requirements as well. So our system is a full ALM system, and you can manage the life cycle of your whole testing alone from our system. And that sort of threw up the question in our minds. Well, we put these extra modules in, the requirements, and particularly the issues module. Is it part of the core functionality of the system? And do we see PractiTest as really being a piece of software which is literally an ALM, taking everything from one end to the other? Or do we see it that, yes, if you don't already have an issues module, yes, you can use our issues module, but in an ideal world, you'd have separate issues management, and then you'd integrate it with PractiTest. And that's the sort of thing we'd like to discuss today, to work out whether PractiTest Issues Module is something which is really a deep core part of the functionality of the system. And we say, yes, we stand behind our issues module. It's something which is fully functioning. You don't need to go out and buy any issues management software. You can use PractiTest for everything. And this is a one-stop shop. Or is it really something where we say, well, if you don't have anything else, you can use it, but it's better if you do have integrated issue management. And that's the sort of thing we want to discuss. So to start with, I think what we're going to go through is talking about PractiTest and the issues management in the flow, and show how PractiTest's issues management can be something which is so integrated into the flow, its own issues management, that you don't need to work with anything else. So let's talk about PractiTest as a core functionality. So,
okay. Anthony, maybe we need to go to the issues module itself. What do you think?
So let's take a look firstly at the issues module itself. So in the issues module here, you can see that we have a grid with all of our issues in the system. They have IDs, they have statuses, assigned to, priority, last modified. And of course, like any other aspect of PractiTest, the fields are able to be modified, added to. So for example, many people want to have a severity field. So you can have a severity field, you can have a type field, a product components field. You can put in any of the fields which you have in any part of the PractiTest system. And in the same way as you can do that, you can also filter in the same way as you do with any other part of the system as well. So it's no extra learning which is necessary to use the issues module of PractiTest. Once you have the methodology of PractiTest internalized, the issues module is just an extension, and it has the power of the issues modules of any test management or issues management system. So for example, you can filter, you can group your issues, you can change the statuses of them and the assigned tos, you can comment on your issues and then have mentions in your comments, just like you can with any other module of the system and any respectable test management, issue management system.
Okay.
And yeah.
Anthony, what do you think, like, where does our user should start when, for example, okay, we entered the issues model, we're here, we're at the moment in the demo project, but from what point should our user start? What first things he should do when using the issues model?
So I think like any other area of PractiTest, the first things you should do are to choose your custom fields. Which custom fields do you want to have in your issues management? Do you want to have something like severity? Do you want to have the part of the system which you're using? You're assigned to is a system field, so it will automatically pick up all your users in the system. Okay. So you don't need to add them. But to consider whether you want to add custom fields, we also have the ability that you don't always need to add custom fields. You can bring information in by using filters from custom fields in other parts of the system, which we'll talk about a little later, the cross filters. But when you're actually creating issues, there are two ways that you can be creating issues. You can either be creating issues independently of your testing, in which case you're just going to hit the new issue button and create an issue, or your issues are created as a result of testing itself. So if you're in a test set, for example, and you're running a test set, you can be inside a particular instance, and then when you fail a test, it's going to be done by fail an issue. So let's I was going to say let's pass the first step.
Okay.
Let's pass the first step.
Let's just go back. Yeah. Let's pass it.
We'll pass
the second
step,
one. Okay.
And then the second step we're going to make fail. But instead of pressing just the fail button, you go to the left-hand side and you press the fail and issues button. And what you'll see immediately is that it picks up all of the information in your test steps and the actual results which you've filled in already. So it says my actions were as follows. You log into the system, you open the browser, you go to the user management tab, etc. And it goes right up to the point at which the test fails. And I know that one of the things I hated when I was doing QA testing was writing up issues, because it broke my flow in testing. And I had to go and I had to fill out an issues form in a piece of issue management software.
Of course.
And then I had to write up my...
Yeah, and you need to remember what to write. Yeah,
I have to remember what my reproduction steps are. And by the time I've done that, this can quite often take 5 to 10 minutes. And by the time you finally hit the save button, you've forgotten what you were testing. Exactly. Whereas here, all you have to do is just click the fail an issue button. If you have any custom fields to fill in, just fill them in and hit the submit issue button. 10-15 seconds, and then you're straight back into testing. And you don't get your developer coming back to you and saying, I couldn't reproduce your issue because you didn't write it up properly. Here you have it automatically written up for you, exactly in line with the steps that you took when you were doing the testing itself. And they can reproduce your issue directly from here. Another thing to note here is that when you're creating the issue, on the right-hand side towards the bottom, you have potential similar issues. This is exactly what my question was. I wanted to ask you about that. Because many users, as a support manager, many users, they don't notice this feature. So can you explain what this feature does? Yeah, so the potential here is again, when you're testing as a tester and you want to write up an issue, you're always in this doubt, this level of doubt. But before you even start writing your issue, you have to go back into your piece of issue management software, go through your list of issues and try and search and see whether this is a new issue or something which you've had already. Here, PractiTest gives you the ability to look and see whether you've got potentially similar issues to the one you've just created. And it just pops them up on the right-hand side of the screen when you filled in the issue information. And then once you've done that, you can see whether you actually need to create a new issue or not. And if you've got the issue there already, then you can just say, oh, this is actually part of issue 11, for example. You just cancel out the creation of the issue. And let's go back to our testing page. And then instead of doing fail an issue, we could do just fail and link to existing issue and select issue 11. We've just had a question coming in about how is the potential similar issues list populated? Do we actually know that?
Yeah, the list is populated according to the issue name. So we are taking data from issue names at the moment.
Right. So you take data from the issue name and see whether there's a possible conflict with something that already exists.
Exactly.
And then it populates from there.
Yeah. Anthony, let's presume I pressed fail an issue and I didn't notice that I have potential similar issues, and I submitted this issue again. Then when I realized that that was a mistake and I went to the issues module, I can't see any delete option here. How can I delete it?
Okay, so in general, we recommend that the methodology is that issues aren't deleted. We follow this methodology because any issue which is created is a valid issue, and then it's either rejected or closed as part of the flow. But if it's something which really was totally a mistake, usually if it was created in the wrong project or something like that, then there is an ability to delete, and that is through the account settings. So if you go to settings, account settings, and then you go to project management, and you open up your project by clicking the edit pencil, there is an enable issues deletion. If you feel an absolute necessity to do that, then you can click the update and go into it, and then you will see that next to the on the top of the grid, the delete button has now appeared. We recommend strongly that you don't keep that enabled, and you just delete it and then immediately disable it again by going back into the account settings and disabling the delete button, because it's very rare to have something an issue which is so wrong that you don't want it to be in the records. Normally, if it's something which you don't like, you'll reject it. As you can see, there are various issues which have been rejected here. A rejected issue is perfectly valid. You know, even if it's a duplicate issue, you could have a status of duplicate as well. And in fact, I was talking to somebody this afternoon who had a duplicate issue, and they needed to close that duplicate issue, so they had it closed as duplicate rather than having it deleted. And similarly, that if you've put it into the wrong issue, you don't need to delete the issue and create a new issue. You can unlink it and then link it to another test instance if you need to, a run of a test instance. So the fact that it exists in the issues module doesn't mean, and it doesn't seem to be properly there. There could be many reasons why an issue has been created but should not be deleted and in quotes murdered.
Okay, Anthony, but for example, here I have rejected, I have opened, I have assigned, I have closed. Let's presume I want to have here duplicate or something like that. How to do that?
Okay, so this goes into another screen of PractiTest, which is a very powerful screen, but it's also quite a scary one when you first look at it. And you can see that by going to settings and then workflow. And workflow is issues workflow. And this screen looks absolutely terrifying, but it does have a sense to it. And you choose your statuses on the left-hand side. And the system only requires that you have a new, a fixed, and a closed status. Those statuses have to be there. All other statuses you can remove by clicking on the dustbin, or you can add to by putting a new transition status up there. So you can put your duplicate in here. So if you write duplicate and then click add, you can then see that it's appearing at the bottom. And what you do is you set your transitions and who's allowed to do them. So for example, we can see at the moment that the new status can be transitioned to opened or to rejected. Now, if we want to add duplicate as well, we can go to this box and add duplicate and click add. Now, supposing we want only administrators to be able to move a transition from new to rejected. Then you go to the box which says the transitions for, and you select groups and you choose administrators and you click add for administrators. And then you see that for administrators appears. Now, the confusing thing about this screen is that the boxes are pre-populated by standard with one of the entries in them. And so these are not actually applicable until you have added them. And what is important is what's in very small writing above the boxes. And you can see, for example, for all groups, most things are available for all groups. But to go to duplicate, as we just said, is available only for administrators. And you can add more and more groups. So you can have for administrators and developers by just going to where it says developers and then clicking add there. So if you click the add there, then you'll see it says for administrators and developers. And you can remove them by clicking on the dustbin. And once you've removed administrators as well, then it defaults back to all groups. And then you can add whichever transitions you want, whoever you want to be able to do them. If you don't want to have so many transitions, supposing you don't want opened to be allowed to go to rejected at all for anyone, then you can go to the right-hand side of the screen and you can see the remove transition little button in blue down there. And so this screen really gives you a huge amount of power, which fully fledged issue management softwares have. The ability to select what statuses you have, what the transitions between them are, and who's allowed to make those transitions.
Okay. Anthony, if we are going to the issues module back, and by the way, I'm asking all the questions that I got from customer support channels. So all of these questions were asked by real customers and potential customers. So for example, when we are residing here, let's presume I have a filter, but let's say I want to know what issues are starting with new users.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really temporary thing. I don't need a filter for that. I want something fast.
So
how
what
can
we
I do
have
that?
is we do have, unlike any other module in PractiTest, we have an ability to do a fast filter in the issues module. And that you can find in the menu bar row at the top of the grid where it says filters here. And if you click on that, you can either filter by ID or you can filter by, you said, new users. So if you just type in new users there, you should be able to see the ones which are related to new users.
Okay. And if we're talking, you mentioned something about comments.
Yeah.
But do we have, I don't know, how can I tag a user if I can?
So if you want to put a user in a comment, we have it's a relatively new feature and it goes right through the system called mentions. So that when you add a comment, you can then click the @ as in an email @ and then you can type in the name of whichever user you want. Click on that and then they will receive an email telling them that they've been mentioned in a comment.
And okay, what happens next? Can Anthony, for example, this user, can specify whether he wants to get notifications about mentions?
Yes, so if you look at the personal settings at the top right-hand side of the screen, beyond comments, you can actually receive personal notifications in your personal settings, and then you can select whichever your mentioned notifications turned on by default. But for example, if other changes take place in the system, in the issues, for example, at the top, it's just disappearing off the top of the screen.
Okay.
Up there, that's the issues module, and you can select where you're the author of an issue or where the issue is assigned to me. Then you can receive emails automatically.
Cool. What about users who actually don't have access to PractiTest?
Right.
Let's presume your product manager or stakeholder, someone who reported. Yeah,
annoying reason they want to
yeah.
write a bug. So for some annoying reason they want to write a bug. So we do have that ability in a thing called bug by mail. And if you look at the issues settings in the project, if you go to project settings, you will see that you've got an individual project email address, and you can send a bug by mail to that email address.
Okay, so
then it will automatically
it means...
populate a bug, an issue in PractiTest by sending a description as part of an email.
Okay, so basically it means that you shouldn't be a user in PractiTest if you're not using the system and you want to report a bug. So you can do that. You can send issues directly to PractiTest by using this unique email address.
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually what we recommend is that for developers who are using the system, that they have a developer license, which is a much more limited license than a tester's license. And to reflect that, it's also much more economical to do so as well. So that you can add developers who are just going to be using PractiTest for issues management. They can manage the issues in PractiTest, and then as part of the holistic scheme, as part of the core functionality of PractiTest, you can have your developers in the system, and they can be managing their fixing of bugs from within PractiTest itself.
What about scenarios when, let's presume, we have a potential customer, who is using already external bug tracking tool. Right. Can we offer any solution for these users?
Yes. So this was where we sort of moved from the core functionality to the added value side. And so with the core functionality, we've got PractiTest as a fully fledged bug track, containing a fully fledged bug tracker, which you can use as part of your standalone PractiTest implementation. But as you said, for those who are already using bug trackers, product management tools, then there is still a role very much for PractiTest in your arsenal of activities. And that is, from the tester side, a lot of the functionality of PractiTest can still be used within the issues module. So when you have an integration with external bug trackers, for example, Jira, usually we recommend that you use the two-way bug track, the two-way implementation of the Jira integration. And our big bug trackers like Jira, DevOps, for example, these all have Pivotal, they all have two-way integrations with PractiTest. And they're done at two levels. They're done firstly at the level of the whole account. So if you go to account settings, you could, and you're trying to set up, you first of all set, you don't have access to this project.
But basically, let's presume, yes.
So you have integrations both at the accounts level and at the project level as well. And this is something which I believe, Christine, you probably get a lot of questions about, because people aren't aware that you have to integrate at two levels.
Exactly, because basically we are talking about scenario, for example, today I got a question, Christine, we are using GitLab and Jira Cloud for bug tracking purposes. And we want to integrate these two systems with PractiTest. Can we do that? Is it available option? So of course we support this, but customers need to be aware of the fact that PractiTest can support the two-way integration with one bug tracker only at the moment, meaning that what Anthony has mentioned, the count level. For example, if you're going to settings and account settings, the count settings can be integrated only with one bug tracker, for example, Jira. And it means that one account is integrated with two-way integration with Jira, and you can set up one project. If we are talking about project level, one project will be integrated with Jira, but no one tells you that that's not possible to open another project in PractiTest and integrate it with GitLab one-way integration. Of course, it's available. You may have two projects in PractiTest. One will be integrated with Jira. The second one will be integrated with GitLab.
Okay, so yes, as we were saying, so you've got the ability to do your two-way integration with Jira, and it is very good that you have your integrate. So the way the two-way integration works is that at the first stage, when you have an issue, you don't actually create the issue within PractiTest, you create it from PractiTest. So for example, if you're in a test set which has a particular run in it and you want to fail a run in PractiTest, then you've still pressed the same fail an issue button. But this time, when you press the fail an issue, it doesn't do it within PractiTest. It gives you this modal box, and it gives you your relevant information from Jira. So it looks in Jira for all the compulsory fields, and then it will give you the options to fill in those compulsory fields. And then the description will be, as we said before, taken directly from PractiTest. And so just like before, within a couple of seconds, you can just hit the create the issue button and it is created in Jira. Now, all activity takes place on the Jira side, not the PractiTest side. So when you actually need to do updates to the bug, you always do them in Jira. And as you can see, once you're in Jira, you have an extra, if you click, Jira has been a bit annoying and it's hidden information by default.
We're working on that.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
So you have to click on that button to get it to appear. And so when you have bugs in PractiTest, they will always appear in the middle of the screen. And it will show you the run, and you can then link back straight into the run. Now, even though you're working with two systems now, you're working with both Jira and PractiTest, any information which you need to see in either system will be linked in the other system. All you have to do is just click on the links and it will take you directly into either your bug or your test instance, your test within PractiTest, going backwards and forwards. We often get asked about the right-hand side of the screen. There's a button in the right-hand side, or the section in the right-hand side of the screen, which says Open PractiTest Link Test Library. And as you can see, that's black. So what happens with the Jira integration is that we actually have two sections on any screen, and not in most cases only one will be populated. The middle section is for bug tracking, and the right-hand side is for requirements user story tracking. So if this was a user story, not a bug, then the right-hand side would be populated with tests in PractiTest. Then when you have a bug, the middle section is populated with the failed run in PractiTest, which it links to. And so you can always see immediately, just by looking at a screen, an issue in Jira, whether it's a user story or a bug, by looking at where the PractiTest information is. So,
okay. So maybe
when you make changes, you make the changes in Jira and they get reflected in PractiTest. So at the moment, the status is in to do. So if you look in PractiTest at this issue, which will hold the same the same issue number as in Jira. It will be DPP 407. So if you see bug DPP 407, you can see the status is to do. Now, if you need to change it, you don't change it in PractiTest. In fact, you can't change it in PractiTest. You always change from the Jira end. And so you go back into Jira, and then you change the to do to whatever the new status is. For example, done in this case. And then you'll see, once you've done that, that it appears in PractiTest when you refresh the screen as showing done. And the same happens with the description as well. The description information is also automatically updated as soon as it is in Jira. So for example, if you have a bug and the tester puts in a comment in Jira, and because the comments in Jira do not get translated into PractiTest, if he wants to put a comment, he should put it in the description field like this, click save, and then you'll see the updated description in PractiTest as well. And there we see updated my comment. Now, with regard to this, you may say, well, what's the point of seeing the issues in PractiTest now? What benefit does it give me? And you can use the issues in PractiTest to create things like filters and dashboards, which are in PractiTest itself. So for example, we may have a whole load of Jira pieces of information here, but supposing we want to know which version of the PractiTest test runs they were coming from. So if we go back into PractiTest and the issues, you can then filter by a particular run, a particular version. So do we have in this project a version field in test sets of runs?
We do. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So let's create a filter which will pull information.
But first of all, let's check whether the test set where we have version 1.5 here.
Okay, excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go and let's create a filter for version 1.5. Now we have no version filter custom field in issues here. Even though we don't have a version custom field in issues and we're not maintaining it for issues, nevertheless we can still pull the information from the test sets and runs section by using a new feature called cross filter. So if we add an AND query, we can select cross filter, and then we can say select entity as test set.
Yeah, but here we need to, I think
there are a lot there. So let's start typing. Let's start typing.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. Okay, and now if we click on the create filter, we can see that this group of tests are related to version 1.5.
Mm-hmm. So all of these issues are related to version 1.5. Yeah.
And of course, we can now plot these on the graph as well. So for example, if we go to our dashboards, do we have room for another dashboard item here? Or do we need a new? Yep, we have a room. So if we go to customize dashboard,
let's just change the existing one.
Okay. So let's go to issue, and let's do pie chart, for example, and then continue, and we can filter it by bugs for version 1.5, and the X field is status, and then we can save the dashboard item, and we can see, and these will update automatically based on Jira. So as soon as a developer pops into Jira and says, I've now fixed the issue, and clicks the fixed button, then it will update within a matter of a few minutes on this dashboard. And you don't have to look at Jira to see it. It's immediately populated in PractiTest. And you can use all the power and functionality of the PractiTest dashboards to see the information in PractiTest.
Okay, just one comment that, of course, as Anthony mentioned before, we are not talking about only issues, bugs in terms of the Jira two-way integration. We also mean that if you have stories, features, enhancements, improvements, such entities in Jira, you can import them to the requirements module. And then, for example, here you have all of these entities, all of these stories were imported from Jira, and then you will have the end-to-end process in PractiTest, starting requirements that are basically your Jira stories. Then you link test cases to these requirements, then you run these test cases, and then you report bugs directly to Jira, but also these bugs will reside in PractiTest, so that you can generate multiple dashboard graphs here that will show results, that will show statistics of your requirements that were imported from Jira, of your issues that were imported from Jira. And also, of course, we didn't touch yet the report section.
I was going to say the requirements traceability report.
Exactly. Let's do that right now. Let's show it.
Okay, so let's do a new report, requirements traceability. Tabular traceability, give it a name. And then if you create that report, it should give you all the information you need going through the whole of the testing phase. Just finishing now.
Yeah, it will take a few seconds. And by the way, we've already got many questions. Thank you for that. Of course, we unfortunately won't be able to answer all of them, but of course, we will continue answering them on the discussion forum. And also, as always, Anthony and I are happy to conduct follow-up meetings with customers and potential customers where we will be able to discuss further questions.
Just very briefly, I think we can go through a couple of those questions. Firstly, the one which we had about you can't use the comments field in Jira. You can use the comments field in Jira, but it's not linked to the comments field in PractiTest. I believe probably part of the reason is because of permissions, that we're using separate sets of users in Jira from PractiTest, and therefore we're not allowed, probably not allowed to be able to link the comments from Jira to PractiTest because of this ability of mentions. Jira, I think, also has an ability for mentions, but you'll have a different set of users in Jira from the set of users that you'd have in PractiTest, and therefore we can't link the two sets of comments fields together. And I have a feeling that probably won't even happen in the future. Even though we are looking at linking more fields together from Jira, I doubt the comment field will ever be able to be linked because of that. And another question is that in some projects we have tickets directly raised in Jira. In such a situation, can we manually import those tickets? Yes, we have the ability to sync issues in PractiTest as well with Jira. We have a sync an issue button, don't we, in PractiTest?
Yeah, of course. We can go to here, sync a new issue from Jira.
And if you sync an issue from Jira, then it can be linked directly to in PractiTest as well.
Yeah, of course. You just need to enter IDs of your Jira issues, and in case you're using the Jira Cloud two-way integration, you can also import entities from Jira filters, meaning that if you have a filter in Jira and you don't need to import issues one by one, you can just import all the issues residing in one filter in Jira filter. So it's a very powerful feature that will be added to other integration as Jira Server integration or integration with Jira Data Center. It will be added to these integrations very soon.
Yeah. And the final question which we've had so far is one about which I was told to ignore, but I think it's a valid question and that we should answer it. And that is that with regard to the delete in issues, you can select user profiles, whether they're allowed to delete issues or not. But this is a sort of master that stops even the highest powered people who are administrators from deleting. And so therefore it's a super block on delete that we believe that even people who have the power to delete issues shouldn't be allowed to delete issues unless the account owner specifically says that they can for a specifically limited amount of time. So yes, you can set your permissions for a particular set of users, that but not for everyone. But nevertheless, we believe that it's better not to allow anyone to delete issues at all as a general rule. Finally, before we do conclude, I just wanted to mention that even if we don't have integrations for the specific bug tracker you're looking for, that you can still build your own custom integrations pretty simply, and that we have a fully open API which includes the issues module, and you can build your own integration to various any bug tracker which has an API which you can then go and plug information in. And we've been told by many developers who have used our APIs that it's a very straightforward API to use, and they've developed some quite complicated plugins within a matter of just a few hours. So that's an option. And also we have support for Zapier as well. And Zapier is a sort of connector which connects different pieces of software together.
Okay, and also let's answer at least one question from Q&A section. So the question, one of them was how to use custom fields from Jira on PractiTest. Example, release, severity, priority. So what can you think about that? Yeah.
At the moment, we don't yet import custom fields from Jira, but it is something that we're looking at seriously. We don't have an exact date for it, but it is something that we are, as I said, looking at, and we do want to implement in some way or other in a future release. Can you add anything to that, Christine?
Yeah, with regards to the Jira integration in general, our agenda for this year is to implement significant improvements to these integrations, because we understand that many customers and potential customers, they are using external bug tracker Jira, and that's why we need to make sure we provide the best integration that we can. And of course, stay tuned, we will include more and more improvements to the Jira integrations, and you will be able to see them very soon. And Anthony,
And I think that sort of brings us full circle back to where we started with the question: is PractiTest's bug issue management, is it core functionality or added value? And I think that brings us back and says that yes, it's actually both. It's a core functionality of PractiTest itself. It's added value for people who use it as for Jira, but it's also part of a core functionality as well for people who are using an integrated bug tracker. As we build up the links between in the integration and make them more powerful, then it becomes core functionality for them as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the best option to show that, maybe we need to open our report that we generated that will include really traceability information, starting requirements up to issues, so that just a second, it
hasn't come onto your onto your screen yet.
Yeah, we will see it in a few seconds, so that users will be able to see that we're not talking about only separate models, we are talking about full picture that PractiTest provides. Just a second. Okay, this is
not the responsibility of PractiTest.
Yeah, of course not. This is Excel thing. Yeah.
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 Not our fault.
Yeah. Yeah, this is update of Excel. And no, that's okay. Everything is fine. We will open it. That's okay. Yeah, because sometimes Excel needs additional permissions. It happens. Yeah, here we go.
And as you can see here in this report, as Christine says, it gives you the complete workflow. It gives you the requirement name, the test name, which is linked to the requirement. It gives you the test sets and last run statuses, and the issues which are there as well. And of course, it's all clickable. So if you click on anything, as long as you're a PractiTest user, or a Jira user, you can see whatever's relevant to you.
Exactly.
And it's all
So,
color coded.
Yeah, this is a great advantage here, that you can see failed, so it's basically in red. So it's really intuitive for users. So Anthony, would you like to add anything before Rachel will finish our workshop?
No, I think just thank you all for joining us in the difficult circumstances. And it's been an honor and a pleasure to go through with you more functionality of PractiTest.
Yeah, thank you guys. And please remember that in our forum, discuss.practitest.com, you are able to continue discussion about our workshop series. Thank you.